This podcast contains potentially adult language, adult themes, definitely drinking, and possibly sexual context. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Drinking with Authors, the podcast. I'm your host, Erica Lance. My amazing co-host today is Danielle Orsino, and she's totally dressed up. So for those of you that are only listening to this podcast, you got to go see it when the YouTube comes out because they're kind of amazing. I do want to say, don't forget to like and subscribe to us. We really appreciate that. If you leave us a review, we would really appreciate that as well, because it tells us how much you enjoy it, especially if you're drinking along and then want to leave a review. We would absolutely love that, because that's going to be amazing. Also, if you want to be on the podcast or know an author you'd like to have us stalk down and find, you can always email us at drinkingwithauthors@gmail.com. We would love to have you on the show, and we'd love to stalk your favorite authors and get them on the show. So our sponsor today, by the way, is Skunk Brothers Spirits. If you go to skunkbrotherspirits.com and you type in coupon code DWA10, you'll get 10% off your order. Now, with all that, I have a little post-it that tells me these things so that I don't forget to say them. That's how it goes. Our amazing guest today is Nancy Houser-Bluhm.
Woo!
Woo! That's exciting. Okay, let's talk a little bit about what we're drinking. I was super excited while perusing in the Publix, and I found an Angry Orchard Tropical. So it's a hard fruit cider, and it has mangoes and pineapples and apples. So it's tropical. Angry Orchard Tropical. So I've just opened it. I haven't tried it yet, so we're going to see how that goes. Danielle, what are you drinking?
Oh, I've gone barefoot yet again. I've gone Fruscato in apple.
Ooh. It's an apple theme today. What is that?
I've got my goblet.
The goblet.
I've got my unicorn goblet.
I have to say,
you should be sponsoring us.
Yes, they should be sponsoring this unicorn goblet. I have to say, ironically enough, today I received in the mail from a friend they were from Pottery Barn, and they're wine glasses that have a skeletal hand on them. I am so excited to use these with any beverage that I have, but they're dirty. So I literally had them on the counter. I was like, no, I need to wash those. But I almost did, because I have no tact or taste. Okay, Nancy, what are you drinking?
I am drinking whiskey. Jameson is my whiskey. I'm not really very fancy with my whiskeys. I love Jameson with ginger turmeric kombucha.
Oh, wow. That sounds amazing. I'll have to say, Jameson is pretty fancy. You could have just said, I got dollar store whiskey. So Jameson's at least like a couple levels up, maybe above
she just elevated it. This whole podcast just got elevated with that.
It did, because by the way, this is really yummy. This is actually really good, but you know what it needs? It needs some whiskey in it. Yes, that's what it needs. Okay, next time I'll have whiskey in my skeleton wine glasses, and just offend wine drinkers everywhere. So Nancy, let's talk about, what do you write for the audience that may not know you?
Well, I've published one book. It's called Whispers for Terra. It was I think of it as magical realism. And it's about a woman who's a speech pathologist, which was my trade before I retired from full-time. And she's working, and she's pretty burned out. She spends a lot of time in some nearby woods. And because of her communication skills, the woods have been observing her for some time, and they reach out to her and ask her to carry a message about the earth to the people. So it definitely has a thread and a heavy theme about climate related issues, specifically our soil. And since that's been released, it was released in May of 21, so a year and a half old. I've been writing a time travel romance.
Very time travel romance. I like that. So
very cool.
let's talk about when you decided that you wanted to write, because I have a feeling we're going to do like the little Scooby-Doo thing, go backward.
Mhm.
So when did you first decide you liked writing?
Oh, well, I've been writing. I was just a voracious journaler all of my life and developed my own journal with my husband's artwork in it to promote. But I wrote articles for local newspapers, just kind of vignettes or, little memoir type things. And then I wrote in grade school, I wrote some poetry and that type of thing and entered little contests, through school and, won some of those. So I've been a writing dabbler for, most of my life. And then when I retired, I worked in the school systems. When I retired, I had to say what I wanted to do in my retirement. And speech pathology has, it's like slew of 30-page reports all the time. And I said I wanted to write more creatively. And there was a woman that I knew well, I knew her, but not well. We'd sat on a lot of committees together. And she started texting me about, have you started that writing yet? Have you started that, writing yet? And I was like, no. And then I started a blog, and then something fell into my, inbox, my email, that prompted me to think, well, maybe I could write. It was Sage Adderley is her name, and she was doing a idea to outline. So all you had to have was an idea, and you spend a week trying to outline a novel. And then, of course, she offers another course in which you can write a novel, first draft in 90 days. So I thought, okay, I'll give it a shot. I really kind of stumbled into it. It wasn't like I always wanted to write a novel about this or anything like that. It was just kind of serendipitous. And it was during that initial phase, COVID hit. So we were all home. We were all not doing a whole lot of stuff. So it was kind of prime time to just forge ahead with it.
That is awesome. So what made you transition? So first of all, just because I don't even know what that is. What is forensic voice? What is that? I don't even know what that is. Like, I know the word forensic, but what does that mean? Explain.
Are you talking about speech pathology?
Yeah, speech pathology. That's what I meant. Speech pathology. Look at, I even said the wrong thing. Like,
yeah, that's right. Forensic sounds much more intriguing, actually. It's really dealing with any type of communication impairment disorder, and in little kids, it's helping them develop. So kids that wouldn't have language, but I spent my first 20 years in working with adults. And well, I worked with kids too, but primarily adults who had strokes or neurogenic type of declines, and helping them rehabilitate their ability to communicate again. So it's really about communication, whether it's the speaking, the understanding, the processing, the reading of it, the writing of it, all of that. So it's pretty complex. And then it gets into voice therapy, and it gets into stuttering and communication devices. I mean, there's so many legs of it that it's hard to be current in everything even. So
wow, that is amazing. And that is an amazing line of work that I'm sure helped probably thousands of people throughout your career. So well done with that.
Thank you.
Very cool. So then you're like, I'm going to retire and write a book. So was that like your first idea? You were like, you know what? I'm going to publish a novel. That's what I'm going to do.
No, I think I thought I'd be famous from writing a blog, and I had 5 followers for a while, and I'm up to 30 or something. And so I don't know, who knows what people think. Even when you write a book, you think it's going to be the big one or whatever, and it doesn't necessarily travel that path. But I think I had taken a course when I was still working. It was a week long during my spring break. And it was a group of people that presented one every day for just an hour. And it was the first time. It was about building a story and that sort of thing. It was the first time I think I'd always said, I can't write a book. I don't have a story in me. I can't write dialogue. And the book is very heavy with dialogue. I think it's a very, very easy, pleasing read. And it's full of dialogue. So it just came so easy. I was shocked that I could write dialogue, and people have said it's pretty interesting dialogue. Even it's not just dribble. So
Well, that's good, and I'm not surprised at all with your previous career that you can do dialogue.
Yeah.
Like that would have been
That's what I would think
easy.
too. Yeah, that kind of comes like
I was like,
follows
that's the
dialogue.
easy part. I was like, describing the forest nymphs, that might get hard, but no, that is amazing. So how did you end up publishing this book? Is it traditional self? Where did you go with it?
it is indie published independently, so self-published, yeah. And the woman that I had gone through her program with, Sage, she was a strong promoter of independent publishing and had done a number of hers. And then it did just, that business exploded during COVID. I guess there were more self-published books than there have ever been in a single year's time. But it was an interesting process because, I didn't know what the heck I was doing, and so there was definitely a lot of support there. And, she'd kind of lay out the map of what you have to do next, and getting the ISB and ISB 9 codes, getting, somebody to do my cover, getting somebody to format, because I didn't know any of that. So it was quite the education and the journey. It's not all of it a happy journey. It was, really, was a very complex process, but I'm really glad I did it. I know so much, and sometimes I can even advise other people, and I feel like I know nothing. So there's people that know less than I do out there. It's just,
Well, you have a book published, you have to know something. You managed to go that far. Not only that, you managed to listen to somebody who had you get professionals do the professional things so that your book could come out and not be I use my own, paint program to do my cover, which depending on the book, I guess can be okay, but sometimes that is a shit show. That is really awesome. So when did the book publish?
It published the print book came out in May of 2021. So a year ago, May, it came out. So
very cool. And what has been something that you didn't expect since you published the book, like something you did not see coming in the book publishing realm?
I think the thing that has surprised me the most was I always had a reverence. I like the woods. I grew up early. I've always spent a lot of time outdoors. But I really touched a lot of people that kind of reconnected with nature. Really enjoyed that aspect of it. A lot of people didn't know that, we have issues with the quality of our soil. And I didn't know much about it. I was kind of like one step ahead in my book. I was researching as I was writing it, but I get pictures sent to me or put on my Facebook or Instagram page all the time of these, incredible trees, because the character in the book sees faces in trees. And as I do, I confess. And, lots of people do. I've discovered, I thought I was an anomaly, but, there's people that see faces and everything, the tile in their bathroom floor, that type of thing. So,
No, totally. Well, that's what the Druids believed. I have friends that are actually legitimately Druids, although the human sacrifice is out of the question at this point. But one of the things is the knock on wood, a lot of people don't realize, was what people used to do is they'd knock on the wood in the forest to wake up the spirits to protect them on their journey as they were going through. And depending on the trees, sometimes they'd ask for permission to travel through the forest to the spirits within the trees. So it's interesting that you say that about the faces, because I'm quite sure that's something that is familiar from a historic standpoint on how people approach things like that. That's really, really neat. So let's talk a little bit about your new book. We have time travel. Let's talk about time travel. So,
it started
Tell us more.
A book. There's a town in Colorado called Glenwood Springs that I haven't been to that many times. It's across the Continental Divide from where I am, but it just fascinated me. And there's a hotel that has been there since the late 1800s, a couple of them actually. And there's hot springs there. They were very famous at the turn of the century. And so I really wanted to write something that involved that. And I was going to be about a woman, although this will come in towards the end of the novel, about a woman who steps away in 1938. The year has 37, 38, always fascinated me. And for whatever reason. And so it was going to be about a woman that traveled from the East Coast to Glenwood Springs. If I said Colorado Springs, I meant Glenwood Springs. And then somebody put a prompt on Instagram. It was like squirrel. And it was, if you could write a Hallmark Christmas movie, what would it be? And I all of a sudden started thinking from that thread. And even though it's not a Christmas movie, and hopefully it goes beyond being a Hallmark movie, although I'm a sucker for them, I decided to go with time travel. And it was so much fun to start. You know, it was such a kick in the pants to start that I just kept going that direction and just kind of set the other storyline aside. So.
Well,
Do you
that's-
usually just write from inspiration? Sorry, Erica. Do you
no,
just like
please,
get
that's what I
kind
was
of-
going to actually ask. So
Yeah.
mind
There
reading.
you
must
go.
cover-
We're right there.
You know,
your
what I learned is that there's two kinds of writers. Well, there's probably many, a whole continuum in between, but your pantsers, and you guys probably know these terms as, and a plotter. And I fall in more the realm of the pantser, where I'm just I do kind of write in a flow. And that first draft, you know, probably has, you know, just a ton of holes and gaps and that type of thing. So, and when I am stuck, I'll go out for a walk or ride my bike, and I just kind of in mode. And, you know, very often something will come to me that will answer that next step or that question. So I guess to some degree it's from inspiration and just kind of laying it write itself with a general format for sure. You know, there's always a general format. So this one is about a woman that is in current day time, and she finds herself in 1938, Glenwood Springs, and a man from 1898 comes forward and they find themselves together there. And
So it's a dual time travel kind of
yeah.
thing. Oh, that's interesting. So that
Wow.
must have been a lot of research, because you've got to move her
Just
backwards,
thinking,
him
like-
forward. Like,
Well, that's what, you know,
wow.
I'm only actually 50,000 words into it. So there's a lot of research. I did go to Glenwood Springs. I met with the archivist at the museum there to try to get a better understanding of that area and what it was like, particularly during 1938. Plenty easy to know what it's like in 2022, you know, but 1898, you know, equally what it was like then. And what's fascinating, and I just realized after being in some critique groups, that I really need to back up and start the book, do either some kind of prologue or something in the first chapter that lets people know that even though Glenwood Springs is a mountain town, it was pretty progressive. It was the hub. You know, there's Denver, and then, you know, Glenwood Springs is probably 3 hours by car. So you can imagine in the 1930s that it was even a longer drive. But Glenwood Springs was very active. It had an airport, it had car dealers, it had department stores, it had grocery stores, you know, that type of thing. 1938 was not what we might think of. Somebody, you know, really questioned if I had done my research, because they didn't think there would be this car in it that I described. And, you know, sure enough, you know, it could be there. It was probably not the easiest drive getting there, but people are amazing what they would drive, the conditions they would drive in the mountains when there were barely roads. They were much braver on roads than I am today, that's for sure. So.
Well, I think it's really interesting that you say that, because I think a lot of times with books, especially the people that do the good research on it, and then you get an editor, a proofreader, or a beta reader that has no idea what you're talking about, you almost have to specifically find some beta readers, that sort of thing, that know that time era to go,
Mhm. That's a
were
good
you
idea.
accurate versus, I don't think that car was there. Well, nobody gives a crap whether you think the car was there. If you researched it and you have pictures of the car being there, the damn car was there.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
and it's interesting because I've never heard of this town. Not
Right.
that I'm an expert on Colorado. I just said that as if I'd done a lot of research. I've heard Colorado's famous, never be like that. I've never heard of this town, therefore it doesn't exist. But you never know what smaller towns had started off in the idea of being a much bigger town, but whatever happened, whether it was highways, whatever, changed the course of that town's ability to grow. Like,
Mhm.
where they choose to put things kind of changes how a town is.
Mhm. Yeah,
As infrastructure grows up.
right. And it's still a thriving town. It's not, well, it's growing like everything else, but, it's near Aspen ski area. So of course it's still, thriving. And there's, it's right off of a main thoroughfare, I-70, that runs through all of Colorado and farther east then. So, but it's still just a charming town. They've kept a lot of the housing, is still very historical, as well as the buildings
Oh,
are
that's
very
cool.
historical. So it's very cool.
What you're basically telling me is there's a lot of haunted houses there. So,
Maybe.
yes.
We need to do a ghost hunters episode, Erica.
We do. We need
Go
to go
check it
to
out.
we need to go to paranormal searching.
Yes,
In so many ghosts, so many ghosts. Okay.
that's what we
Well,
need to do.
let's take a quick break and we will be right back with Drinking with Authors.
Sample locally sourced, quality distilled spirits in the beautiful Columbia River Gorge. At Skunk Brothers Distillery, we're family owned, brewing small batch grain to bottle spirits, just like our grandfather did back in the Prohibition era. From handcrafted bourbons and moonshine to flavored blends and cordials infused with local fruit. Join us for a tasting tour and buy Skunk Brothers spirits straight from the source.
It's all in the family at Skunk Brothers Spirits, located in Stevenson, Washington.
And we're back after planning our trip so that we can go see the haunted houses. So let's talk about, how long did your first novel, because you said you joined a class to do a 90-day novel writing, but how long did it take you really to write the first novel? A lot of people, that first one is, that one tends to take some time for us.
I think this one is probably going to take me longer, my second one. My first one, the emphasis was writing the first draft in 90 days. And her emphasis was that you could write and publish within a year's time. And I, was on a little bit slower track. I was probably a year and several months. In hindsight, I wish there were some things I wish I'd have taken probably more time with. To do, maybe, but it is what it is. And I think it is a good book. People like it when they read it, but it was a year and 3 months, I think, by the time, which is not really very long. That's pretty
No.
bad, I think. Yeah.
Not at all.
But the research of this one, that had other than the research, environmentally based research, it didn't have that much I needed, whereas certainly my time travel novel will take more time to research.
That's ironic. The time travel novel will take more time. Say that 5 times fast. So are you going to self-publish the time travel novel as well, or are you?
I'm going to a writers conference in Denver in a couple months or a month, and I will do some pitches, but I'm perfectly comfortable now with the process of self-publishing, and thought I might learn how to do my own formatting, or I have an author friend who could format it for me. There's more. I still definitely need the professional cover and editing and that type of thing. But I might self-publish, kind of see what comes along. So
Very cool. Well, what are your writing goals? Like, so you're on book 2. Do you have any goals for yourself?
For completion,
I don't know. You're like, I'm a writer now, so I now have a book out. I'm going for book 2. Like, what is your goals?
I recently wrote a short story that actually was kind of a spin-off that related to the novel Whispers for Terra, and it's called Fireflies, and I submitted that to Green Stories. There's a woman in the UK that really is trying to gather stories by people who can write fiction, but build in some kind of intriguing, interesting element of the climate so that people can learn about the climate issues without reading a nonfiction book, that is kind of dry or something like that, something engaging that, enthralls them, but learn along the way. So I wrote that short story, and I wrote a poem that I was just really inspired by when one of the rulings came out recently, in recent months from the Supreme Court, and I submitted that, and I'm going to submit that some other places. And I had it vetted by another couple poets, and they said it fell into the social justice arena. So that's, I'm going to do that and actually try to get, more of that type of thing written too. And then with the next book, I guess I know I will be wiser about book promotion, that, because that was another thing. I was just kind of like, grabbing from here and putting it there and grabbing, it was, pretty haphazard in my methods. I did some book signings and I did related things like that, but
what was that like, doing book signings? How was that?
It was pretty thrilling. The first one, because I think
let's talk about that.
Yeah, exactly. That's our Oprah moment.
Yeah. Most authors have that imposter syndrome, at least early authors. Most do, I did. And so the fact that somebody came and, I'd worked up in this foothill area for a long time, but all these people that came actually to a little gift store that, a woman that has novelty gifts, and it was a, cool little store. There were so many people that came in, and it was fun. And then I did one at Tattered Cover, a bookstore. And, I had to do readings, and that felt uncomfortable because I was like, they're all there to watch me, because I've always been more the behind the scenes person. I am someone that if somebody comes up with an idea, I'm right there, to do it, but I don't necessarily put myself out front, but I've gotten more comfortable with that. So it's really kind of fun. It's not like they were backed out the door or anything like that. No heavy waiting lines, but
though, it's when you have that first book in front of you and somebody wants you to sign it, though, that's a moment for any author.
It is.
Yes, that because the fact is that you put a lot of blood, sweat, tears, emotion, like all these things into a book. And I think some people don't realize, like, we spend a lot of time with our books. We spend an awful lot of time with our books, and we spend a lot of time going through many things like, is this good? Is this bad? Second guessing ourselves, all the things. We do the things, and then somebody comes up and goes, I want this, and I want you to sign it because you're awesome and you did this thing. It's, to me, one of the most supreme acknowledgments of your work. And especially then when you hear back, which will be my next question about reviews. So what have reviews been like? Do you read them?
Oh, I do. I was listening to somebody that said they never read theirs. And, I'm like, well, when I first published, I think I was on Amazon looking for reviews like 6 times a day or something. I don't know, but then, so now I don't look very often, but if I know somebody has reached out to me and, made some comment about it, and I've, politely asked, or badgered, that they write a review, then I do kind of watch for that. And, most of all the reviews have been positive. It'd probably be good to get one that's, not as glowing, just so they seem more authentic in them, but I shouldn't say that. They are authentic, but, they, most authors, that are like renowned have, some negative.
Well, here's the thing is the number of reviews you get, you will get negative reviews. It just will happen because it's called math. It just happens that way and has nothing to do with you. It will have to do generally with somebody stumbling upon your book. It's not for them and them writing a whole entire thing about how they really shouldn't have finished reading the damn book to begin with. Thank you very much for purchasing my book. I've been waiting because I've been waiting for a panel where somebody says it makes a comment about my book, and I go, cool. Well, thank you for buying it. Like, I mean, you
Come
supported
hang
me.
with me, Erica. Believe me, you can answer my panel question.
I will answer your panel questions for you, Danielle. I'm
Please.
telling you, because I just look at it
No
and go,
problem.
you know, some people just, it's not for them. It's just not for them. And sometimes those are the people that decide the most to do reviews, you know, that's what you run into.
Right. You know, I
What if-
think what was interesting is that my ego, and probably any early author has such a fragile ego. And, you know, I heard,
Yes.
you know, feedback from people that did not write reviews, that, you know, it wasn't for them. They didn't like the main character, you know, whatever it was. And I practically feel, you know, like the fetal position was, you know, close by. And now I guess I've heard enough positive that I've chosen, you know, I recognize that it's not for everybody. It wasn't their book. And even though people tell you that, initially it was really hard, but now I would be kind of,
You got your shield built up.
But yeah, I'd be kind of like, okay, somebody, you know, put in a review that, you know, didn't like it. I think I'd be fine with that. So
You can move on from it. Yeah. I think
Yeah,
that's a healthy attitude.
Well, and that's it's not that you don't have to take things personally. What you have to do though is be analytical with reviews and not emotional with reviews. Because if you can analytically look at it and go, okay, because it's true with the good reviews too. If all of the good reviews are talking about some little character in your book that was just a plot device for you, and they love, you know, Anne the snail, that's not a character in a book. I'm just making that up to give my example. But everybody's talking about Anne the snail in their reviews. Well, maybe you need to bring Anne the snail back in a follow-up book or something like that, or a novelette, because that you never know what parts of your book people relate to, right? And it could be something that you didn't even think of. So going through and going, they love that, or maybe it's how you write the, you know, little mysteries or little parts of it and stuff. Then you go, okay, I did that really well. And if people comment that, you know, they didn't like Ted, and Ted's like the boy in the book, and you're like, well, I thought I did Ted well, that's fine. You just know maybe a little tweak to this particular audience wants some variation on Ted, right? It doesn't mean you have to do it. It just means that's some analytical advice. Or if it's like, hey, this person switches tenses all the time, you got a professional editor, you won't have that. That's kind of advice you want to go fix that. Right. But if it's just like, I didn't like it, or I liked it, both of those things actually don't do anything for you other than, cool, thanks for, it's kind of like when people just leave the stars, but they don't write a review.
Yes, exactly.
Cool, thanks for the stars. We, just for the record, any people listening, write the damn review. We don't care if it's a couple sentences, but at least say why you're giving it that stars. I don't care how many stars it is, but at least tell us why.
I always think of it as if you're going to leave like let's say you're going to leave a 3-star review, then write 3 things. Just think of it like that. You know, if you're going to leave a 3-star, then write down 3 things, you know, just kind of gauge it that way. Because some people are not great on leaving reviews. Like they don't write great reviews. So just then go by the star system. You leave 4 stars, write 4 things. You know, I get that people are like, I don't write 5 stars because no book is perfect. Okay, then go with 4 and write 4 things. You know, it depends. But when people write like, I just don't like it. All right, well, maybe you were having a bad day. Or, you know, if you love the book, great. What do you love about it? Is it a good female protagonist? Is it a good male protagonist? What is it? Just write something and, you know, give us something to go on, because we are going to use it as a blueprint for the next one.
Yeah. And that's the analytical part versus this random person I've never met before in my entire life and will never meet left me a bad review.
Or else I'm coming to your job and the next time you're up for a raise and the boss is like, well, I'm going to be like, you want to see what they write? Let me tell you about how they write reviews, and I'm going to stand over them and tell them exactly how you do things. And then you and I are even. How's that? Good review.
New service that we offer. You write a bad review. It reminds me of Jane Silent Bob Strike Back, where they took the list of everybody who said something
Yep.
about them and showed up at their door. And
That's exactly what I'm doing. I'm showing
that's
up
what we
now.
should do. New service we're offering. Oh my
Yes,
God.
exactly.
So Nancy, what is your writing environment like? Does it have to be quiet? Do you like music? Do you only write in the house? I know you did a lot during COVID, which meant we were all in the house, but now that you can kind of get out a bit, do you go to coffee shops? Do you write at a bar? Like, tell us your writing area.
Well, this room is part of my writing area. I move around the house. I can't stay in one place that much. We have a really beautiful dining area that has lots of windows, and I move down there, and in the winter, it gets the afternoon sun. And so I'm kind of like the cat, I move around the house following the sun.
Perfect.
And we also have, it's called a cricket trailer. It's a it's kind of a pop-up, but it's very cool. And that's in our yard and, popped up when we're not camping. And I go sit out there and write. And, I open the windows, I have the environment sounds. And so it's very quiet. I tend to need quiet. My husband works, from home. He has music playing all day long. And, I'm just more of that person that I can tune out a lot of sounds and a lot of noise, but I need kind of quiet in the general space. So
a lot of writers are like that. They need it to be quiet, and others I can listen to music without lyrics. And then you have people like Danielle, who's like, I have a heavy metal playlist. Okay.
RuPaul's Drag Race.
Yeah, in the background. And I'm like, okay, I couldn't do that. I'd be too distracted by that entire show to do that. But that's very cool. So
does that calm your mind, Danielle? Is that, that gets...
I just like the noise. I can have RuPaul's Drag Race, The Real Housewives, or I make a soundtrack of the book that kind of plays the emotional crescendo, and I have songs. And that's what I listen to, especially when I'm editing. I have that going on the entire time, and that just keeps my place for the whole book and reminds me of the emotional journey of the characters. And that kind of helped keep me focused, or else the voices in my head get too loud. As I sit here with horns on my head.
Yeah, as you're sitting there with horns on your head. Do your characters drive you?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, you. I already know what Danielle.
She already knows my answer.
I'm aware of Danielle.
Do they do what to me? Say that.
Do they drive you? Like, do your characters take you in directions? Some authors' characters you could be heading in one way, especially because you're kind of a pantser.
Yeah.
Do your characters then take off?
Yes, I would say they take off, and I don't know. And I'm actually trying to get better at that. I'm trying to know what they would do in a situation and what they would have for lunch, and know more of the details about my characters. Because when I read, I am not somebody who wants a really heavy description of everything. I like the book to keep moving, and I don't necessarily need to know what I build my own world. I think I don't know that I want somebody to tell me exactly what everything looks like. And so I don't do probably as much of that as I should. And so I'm trying to get better and find more balance with that, because I think they do just kind of go in the direction that makes sense to me at the time, for where they've come from and where they're going. So
that it makes sense. My characters don't drive me either. They annoy me sometimes, but they don't drive me. But I know many people like Danielle whose characters will take off with them and go sometimes in a completely different direction than they thought the story was going to go in, and then they're out there and they're like, no, get back here, and they can't bring them in, and it's impossible.
That might happen once or twice.
Yes.
That might.
Yeah.
Well, just the last half. But what I have found, though, a way that I was able to rein that in a little bit, I take a small character and I build their day as an exercise. And that's how I was able to start reining it in, was I started to imagine their day from when they get up in the morning and the little things they would do. And I wrote small vignettes And that's how I started to build a backstory. But instead of the long, like, familial and all that stuff, I
Right.
just started a day. I had my little character, my Los, my chameleon dragon, and what is a day in the life of Los like?
Hmm.
And built that out, not to necessarily add in the book, but just to keep me on track.
Mhm.
And I didn't get into like crazy detail with him. Just, he gets up in the morning, he eats a star fruit, he does this while King Jarvok's doing that. And that helped me to kind of rein my brain in. So I wasn't doing, as Erica said, letting my characters, drive me every which way,
Mhm.
which they sometimes do. And that did help me I think Val, actually, Erica had mentioned that exercise to me about just reining it in and helping me out with that, because I had
Yeah.
the same problem.
She's terrible about that, but yes.
Yeah.
I think though, I like what you said about leaving out the details and letting people build it, because I think the details are only important if it's important to the story, or
Mhm.
you've left somebody sitting in a white room with white walls with nothing else and they have no idea. But I know exactly what you're talking about, because I've read books, or part of books, because I don't finish them if I don't like them, where they over describe something, and
Mhm.
then actually I almost get confused myself as to where the hell we were in the story, since we just walked into a room and they described the entire room, and it doesn't have anything to do with the story other than it was a bedroom, and maybe it had a quilt on it that you need to know something about the quilt for later in the story when it comes up. But they're like, it had a queen size bed and a full length dresser, a long one. Why is any of that important? Like, do we actually need to know
Right.
this to be in the bedroom? We
Mhm.
don't.
I
So
agree.
I think it's smarter when that happens, because it is very like, what in the hell are you talking about? My God. Oh, very cool. Okay. So how many in-person signings have you done?
I have done 3 or 4 in-person signings. I've been my book is in a number of bookstores around, and then I've done a number, like 5 or 6 different podcasts. And I think that pretty much covers that. And then trying to build that Instagram,
Oh,
Do you have a
format.
newsletter?
I do have a newsletter.
Good,
I
good.
have my blog,
but
so I'm pretty active, but probably not as strategic. I'm in a group. Her name is Kat Caldwell. She does pencils and lipsticks, lipstick. And she has some people that just really are so savvy, and how they promote their book and what they put it on, and book swaps and that type of thing. And I only have one book, so there's not much I can put up for free, the way you can if you have a series or by the time the second book is out. But there are a lot of people. I mean, you guys sound like you're very savvy about many aspects of it too, and that's still something I feel like I'm developing, as a writer. So
Well, I think the marketing part, if it, we talk to a lot of authors, and a lot of whether you're self-published or traditionally published, this is a truth. There is very few publishing companies out there that really market you. Like, actually, I don't think there's a single publishing company that does 100% marketing, unless you're in that top 1%, the J.K. Rowling, Stephen King.
Mhm.
They may do 100% of your marketing and your PR and doing all that. Plus, just your name recognition sells books. So it makes it a lot easier.
exactly.
Just say this book is coming out and you do that. But, I think that is probably the number one thing that surprises most authors, is the amount
Yes.
of platform building and the amount of marketing that they have to do to get their book out there. And it is a
Mhm.
crapshoot, because you could talk about successful authors and they might write paranormal romance, or they might write, horror books, which is completely different. Some of the stuff might be useful, but a lot of it is not going to be useful for your book. So, one of the things I always encourage authors to do is find people that have books that are similar to theirs, talking about the environment, for instance, that you're talking about, magical realism. Find people to do that, and then do like do Facebook lives and stuff like that, and share your groups, because those people are fans that will want to read your book because they like those books versus, you know, trying to do Sharesy with somebody that does hometown romance,
Right.
you know, for your
Mhm.
next book. Yeah. Your next
Yeah,
book,
that'll
hometown
work.
romance, go for it. But this book is not going to get a hometown romance kind of vibey poo, you know, that
Right.
goes. So it's true. And it's something, and there's new stuff every day. There are new apps out there. There are new places to reach. But I will say the number one way to get sales is word of mouth. What about
Mhm.
book clubs? Have you done a book club yet?
Yes, I did one book club early on, and that's the only one that I have done. So I haven't, I don't know if there's ways to promote to book clubs. You know, I've mentioned it to you know, a couple different people, you know, and it didn't get voted to be read by one of them, but that would be a good one, you know, for sure. Anybody out there listening
You
to
know
this?
where a good place to do that too? Libraries.
Libraries.
Libraries. Ask libraries, even not even close to you, if they have book clubs, because it, especially if you get the books to them at a discount, you know, which
Mhm.
you're able to do since you're self-published, they're all about that. And then your books are in libraries.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's one, just a little tidbit from the side.
Yep.
Okay, Danielle, I'm going to give you the last question, mainly because you're dressed like an amazing goddess today. So,
Thank you.
last
Feel
question,
honored.
my friend.
What have you learned the most about yourself in this whole writing process?
Oh, good question. I learned that my tenaciousness pays off because I don't give up easily. I've learned that people enjoy talking to me, and that people, you know, when they come to my book signings and stuff, you know, that because nobody would call me shy, I don't think, you know, nothing like that, but it just, I've learned that it's okay to be out front and to be noticeable. And I don't think that was necessarily the way I felt my upbringing was, you know, that I should be out front and center, that I was more the, I'll say, support person or something like that. And so that's been fun to learn about myself, that people like me out there. You know, they're okay with me being out there. It was only me that was making me feel like I shouldn't be out there. So
That's
awesome.
very cool. Good question and very cool answer. I like it. Okay, shameless self-promotion time, Nancy. How do people find you and your book?
let's see. Well, I'm on Amazon. You can get through Barnes and Noble. So Whispers for Terra, you know, if you just Google it. My website is nancyhouserbloom.com. So that part's pretty easy. On Instagram, I'm JNB, because I didn't know what I was doing when I signed up for Instagram. And so I've just held it, you know, since I have followers with it. And that, as far as an email, if you wanted to email me about something, n.houserbloom@gmail.com. But you can get it at local bookstores here, and any bookstore can order it through Ingram Spark. So you can go to your local indie bookstore and have it ordered, or Amazon, Barnes and Noble.
Very cool. That is so awesome. Thank you so much for being on this podcast with us.
Thank you. I've actually
Yay.
things. I've enjoyed you women, and it's been good.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, guys, this has been Drinking with Authors. I have been your host, Erica Lance. Do not forget to like and subscribe. And of course, if you've been drinking along with us, you can leave a review about now. We'd love that. And our sponsor today has been Skunk Brothers Spirits. Coupon code DW810 gets you 10% off. My amazing co-host has been the very ornately dressed Danielle Orsino. There are horns. You got to watch the YouTube. And our outstanding guest has been Nancy Houser-Bluhm. And we will see you guys next time.